And I mentioned it to my husband, who was like, homeschooling, you couldn't handle that. You can't even handle the 1 hour rush getting out the door in the morning. And I was like, shoot, busted. He's right. But he also was like, is it even legal to do that? Like, we had no clue. And so pretty soon, before you know it, we were homeschooling our 2 oldest and ultimately all of our boys. And we have not looked back. Best thing we ever did. And so I'm just super excited to encourage other families.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am back this week with my friend Monica Swanson, and it's been some time since she's been on the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I actually was like, okay, she's been on before. I know we've had a great time talking, and I couldn't remember when it was, and so I looked it up, and it was all the way back in November of 2020, which that was a long time ago. It's gone by very quickly, the last 4 years, but it's been some time, and so I am so excited to have her back. We're talking about her new book this week. It's called Becoming Homeschoolers, and it is a fantastic book. You guys are going to love this. You're going to love just hearing her heart for homeschool families and talking about her boys. They're a surfing family. She has a really fun story. So we're going to talk about all those things today. But before we do, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. If you're looking for great homeschool curriculum that has a good, strong, solid biblical worldview, check out bjupresshomeschool.com, and they have something for every grade, every age, every subject. They've got something for you. So check them out, bjupresshomeschool.com. Well, Monica, welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am looking at you, for those of you who are watching on video. If you see her background, you might see some trees and a beautiful window behind her. And what that is called Hawaii.
It's green.
It's
really
green. She is in the beautiful state of Hawaii. And I am jealous because I love Oklahoma, but I am now landlocked in this state called Oklahoma, where we don't have the ocean. We don't have the beach here. There are lakes, but okay, if you are from Oklahoma, cover your ears. The lakes are disgusting. They're at least the ones that I've been to. I hear that there are beautiful lakes, but I have not yet discovered them. They feel like it's so weird. The first time I went, I walked out into the lake and I expected it to feel like the ocean floor. And it was like gooey and muddy and really gross. And I did not know what my feet were standing on, and it grossed me out. And so I would like to go back to the beach, back to the Pacific Ocean, and put my feet in that sand, in that water.
That's what vacations are for.
Right. I know. So Monica just invited all of us to come vacation with her in Hawaii. Anyway, for those who don't know you, Monica, introduce yourself and your family to us.
You bet. Thanks so much. Yes, my husband Dave and I are both originally from the Pacific Northwest. So Seattle, Portland area, small towns, raised in the public school system, moved to Hawaii for a 3-year medical residency for my husband, and 23 years later, here we are. We've raised 4 sons. Actually, the youngest is just 14. So we have 3 homeschool high school graduates, 2 college graduates, a professional surfer in there who's doing college online. And we live on the North Shore, kind of out in the country. You do see green behind me. We live a simple life in the country. And I love encouraging families. I love, writing books and podcasting and getting to talk to people like you who share my heart. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you back. The first time you came on, you talked about boys. Because as you guys heard, she has 4 of them. So lots of testosterone in her house. Talk about your homeschool journey. How did you and your husband make this decision to start homeschooling?
Right. Yes. Well, we didn't put a whole lot of thought into our kids' education. I'm not proud to say, but when we were first married, I think that we both just kind of assumed that our kids would do what we did. And we both grew up in the public schools. And as so many people will say, like, oh, we did okay. But looking back, I'm like, did we do okay? I'm not sure if there's some things that I would reconsider in that statement. But by the time we had 3 little ones, we put them in a private Christian school. All was going well. It was very expensive, and it wasn't something we could sustain long-term, we realized. And the oldest son came home from first grade, and over a granola bar and apple juice said, "Hey, Mom, would you homeschool me next year?" To which I was like, what in the world? Now, I did know a few people who were homeschooling, and I think he had heard about it from friends at Sunday school at church. And so the idea was probably somewhere in the back of my head, but it definitely caught me off guard. And so I at first responded, tried to brush off the topic, move on. And then it kind of lingered in my mind as I continued to wrestle with it, think about it. Then I got a little bit curious about it. Then I mentioned it to my husband, who was like, homeschooling, you couldn't handle that. You can't even handle the 1 hour rush getting out the door in the morning. And I was like, shoot, busted. He's right. I do lose my temper a lot in those morning rushes, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
But he also was like, is it even legal to do that? Like, we had no clue. And so pretty soon, before you know it, we were homeschooling our 2 oldest and ultimately all of our boys. And we have not looked back. Best thing we ever did. And so I'm just super excited to encourage other families.
Yeah. I imagine that when you got into homeschooling, you probably did the same thing that that most homeschool families do. And you tried to recreate the classroom in your house.
Yeah.
And, you jumped in doing that. Mm-hmm. What did that kind of transformation look like for you, of bringing them home from school, traditional school, into homeschooling? And then kind of how has that morphed through the years?
You bet. Good question. And I confess, I still have that tendency.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's some of it's a personality thing. And I always want to make sure that I'm checking all the boxes. And I've often said, though I don't think college is for everyone, I don't want to be the one to close that door. So I'm often trying to just make sure that we're doing enough that if our kids choose college, that door is open for them. With that being said, I think that I was forced to morph because of my kids' sports obsession. Because when you're surfing, and now my youngest is a passionate golfer.
Oh, wow.
You don't do school on a normal school schedule. You do school around their sports. And so I think over time, I just had to learn to let go and really give them an opportunity to get outdoors, to go to the beach, to do the things they did, to find ways to do school sometimes really early, sometimes later. And to just be a little bit more flexible. And that has taken me some time, but also discovered the joy of learning in our own way and not trying to replicate what I experienced in the public school. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's so good for our kids to have that freedom to be able to become who God created them to be, whether that's surfing or golfing, or, maybe they're artistic, maybe they're musicians. I mean, whatever it is. But then you also have those kids who they're just wired to be engineers. And so they're the ones who want to sit and do math all day long, which sounds like an absolute nightmare to me. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so how, you've got 4 boys, they all have different abilities and personalities and stuff. How did you, what are your age ranges from your boys? You said your youngest is 14 and your oldest?
Well, my first 3 were kind of more right in a row. So I have an almost 25-year-old, almost 23-year-old, 20-year-old, and then we had a little break there, and now a 14-year-old.
Okay. So
the first 2 all of them are surfers. All of them are passionate about the ocean. They love to spearfish and dive through caves. Like, they just love the ocean. They love to hike and run and explore and camp. I mean, their best memories to date are they try once a year to do a bro road trip on the mainland. Wow. So the 2 that live here will fly over and they'll get in the car and do Yosemite or, some national park and go camp and create great memories, things that I'm always glad I hear about later. But they love their time together.
They're still alive.
Yes. But the oldest 2 were more academically inclined in that they loved to read, they loved school. They tricked me into thinking homeschooling would be really easy because my 4th son is not necessarily that way. But they both, I think we had conversations about college early on in their high school years, and they were both pretty determined to go to college and to go to college on the mainland and to go to a college that I said, you're only going to go if you get a scholarship. So they were motivated and they worked really hard, and they had kind of the well-rounded resume of activities and involvement and faith and character and all the things this college was looking for. And so they both were able to go to college on a nearly full ride scholarship, which is really a blessing. Wow. And they've both graduated, and one is an engineer, actually. As we're talking, he just started his first big boy job at, an aerospace engineering firm. So it's kind of doing stuff that I don't understand. And he's like, Mom, I'm not going to be able to tell you about some of the things that I do, which my husband thinks is the coolest thing in the world. Yeah. And then my oldest son works in data analytics. So he's super computery, geeky, and helpful for all the things I do. So that's been really fun.
That's fun. So you have nerdy surfers. Is basically what you have.
Nerdy surfers that love Jesus. So,
So you said, the two oldest made it look easy. And I think that's a really important thing too. I want to talk about that for a minute, because I think oftentimes in parenting, homeschooling really is parenting. We just went to a homeschool conference and we were listening to Israel Wayne speak, and he was talking about this. And it's a thing that most of us know, but maybe some haven't quite realized it yet, is that homeschooling really is just parenting. That's what it is. It's taking back our families. It's taking our kids under our wings and discipling them and teaching them all those things. But I remember for my two girls, my oldest, she was a very easy kid. I mean, just easy. I mean, I can tell you the first time she threw a tantrum in public, because she never really threw tantrums. Like, she just was very compliant and obedient. And then I was like, man, I'm really good at this.
I'm crushing
mom
it.
thing. I'm crushing it.
Totally.
And then God sent my youngest and was like, let me just show you what you're made of. And
let's stay humble here.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, she is an absolute delight. She is so much fun, but she's just a completely different kid. And when she was a lot younger, just took a lot more out of me. And I was like, okay, maybe I don't actually know what I'm doing. And so homeschooling oftentimes is the same way, where we might have that oldest, more compliant, and moms are like, I got this. This homeschooling thing is super easy.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. I think that some of it is I put in a lot of effort, maybe because I was new and so nervous. With the oldest two, I really did parent, discipline, train, all that so much when they were young, that I feel like by the time the crucial years, the high school years and all that hit, they were pretty well on their way. Whereas with the youngest, birth order is a thing.
Yeah.
And he's been catered to pretty well by everyone in the family, and he's funny and he knows how to use his humor. So I think that probably there's a lot of factors there. Yeah. But the oldest kids definitely were drawn to school and wanting to please mom and dad and wanting to do well. So I was blessed. I thank them often still.
That's awesome. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Have you tried CTC Math yet with your child? Here's a testimonial from another happy homeschool mom. Amber said, I'm absolutely thrilled with CTC Math. It's a rare find that I've used with my children for more than 5 years now. I have 6 children using CTC Math, and each child has found it easy to navigate and very applicable. Thank you so much for all that you are doing in providing quality math lessons for my children. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com. That's ctcmath.com. Are you looking for a homeschool curriculum that goes beyond textbooks and truly engages your children in the joy of learning? Apologia's award-winning curriculum is written by homeschool parents to specifically meet your needs and captivate your students with hands-on activities and experiments that make learning unforgettable. With an easy-to-follow, open-and-go format, Apologia takes the stress out of planning and provides a simple roadmap that can easily be tailored to your family's needs. Explore live classes or self-paced courses designed to accommodate every student's unique learning style. Elevate your child's education, spark their curiosity, and nurture a lifelong love for learning with Apologia. Discover Apologia today at apologia.com. We are back with Monica. Talk about the impact that homeschooling's had in your family. We talk about homeschooling. Oftentimes we want to leave a legacy for our kids. And since homeschooling is parenting, and we want to leave a legacy for our grandchildren and how we've parented our children so they can go on to parent their children in a certain way. Homeschooling is such a big part of that. So talk about your family and how you and your husband have really worked together to really impact your kids, but then going on for them to impact theirs.
Oh, my favorite topic. It was, in fact, when I was writing my previous book, Raising Amazing, that I was on, I think it was the final chapter. And I, both in my book, Boy Mom, that you and I talked about before when I was on, and Raising Amazing, I really wanted to encourage parenting and family and faith, but I was always a little bit hesitant to share too much about homeschooling because I knew that in the general population, it's a small percentage overall. It's growing a whole lot, but I knew that most of my readers probably weren't homeschooling, and so I was kind of just trying to be thoughtful. So I didn't say a lot, but in that final chapter, it was a chapter about how kids spend their days, and I was pretty much just saying, listen, zoom out and consider what are your kids doing with their time, because you're going to look back one day and see that how they spent their time was their childhood. And as I did that, I was like, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about homeschooling. But as I wrote, one chapter led to the next, and pretty soon I had pages about homeschooling. And when I turned the book into my editor, she sent it back to me with scratching almost all of it. And she said, let's save this for your next book about homeschooling. And that was where this book was born. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, told my husband, and I tell this story in Becoming Homeschoolers, that I told my husband, I was like, I don't think I've ever really come out and said what I really believe. Like, I don't even know if I've been honest with myself. And he's like, what? I was like, well, I've tried to honor the reader by not saying too much. I was like, but homeschooling isn't just a part of our journey. It's the main thing. Yeah. This has shaped our family. Next to our kids' relationship with Jesus, nothing has shaped us more than our homeschool experience. So 100%. I mean, I know it's used often, but I can't help but refer to Deuteronomy chapter 6, where, Moses is giving God's marching orders to the Israelites and saying, when you raise those children, talk about God's commands. When? Well, when you lie down, when you get up, when you walk along the street, like that's an all day, everyday thing. Yeah. That's not a Sunday thing. That's not even an evening devotional thing. That's a all day homeschooling thing. Amen. So for us, that's what it's looked like. It's looked like breakfast. It's looked like the classes they take. It's looked like dinner and bedtime. And I am so grateful that we've had this opportunity to talk about faith in every subject of every day. And now that our boys are grown and tell me that they all plan to homeschool their kids, and that's where you mentioned legacy and generations. This is how you pass faith on. That faith baton, generation to generation, is by the all day, every day, act of homeschooling. Better than any other way you could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about zooming out and taking a look at the whole picture, and it's so funny because I just get this image in my head. We travel a lot as a family, and now that we're in Oklahoma, we're kind of in the middle of the country. We go every direction, it seems. And every single time we have to plan for a trip, I get on my computer, not on my phone. I have to do it on my computer because I have to see the map. I have to literally see the entire map. And I'll map from Oklahoma. We just did it. We just went to California a few weeks ago. And so I mapped from Oklahoma to California, and I had to zoom out and look at, okay, what roads are we going to take? How are we going to get there? Because we drove. And you have to look at the entire picture. And I think that's such an important part. We talk all the time on this podcast about using GPS. Like, you have to know where you're going in order to get there, but also zooming out and just seeing, what does the whole picture look like? What do we want our kids' futures to look like? What do we want our grandkids' futures to look like? And it's such an important thing for us to consider, because it causes us as parents to be intentional about how we're doing life, how we're parenting them, what we're teaching them.
Absolutely.
What really matters. Right now we're going through, and you're probably doing this right now, it's summertime. And so I'm still kind of working through, like, what is this next year going to look like? I'm only going to have one that I'm going to be schooling, since my eldest just graduated. And so it's going to look a little bit different this year. Yep. And we'll talk about sports later, but for us this year, like a whole different thing, where she's actually playing volleyball. And she just tried out for a volleyball team. And it's like, this is a whole new world for us, because we've never done sports, and it just looks different. But I'm able to kind of zoom out and was able to look at, like, what are the benefits of her playing volleyball? Self-discipline, looking, being able to work as a team, listening to instructions from the coach, all the things. And I'm like, I don't really care whether or not she makes it over the net. What I care about is the character development that comes with that. Yes. Training of learning to play volleyball. And so again, it's just zooming out, like you said, looking at the entire picture of their lives.
It's so true. And I think for especially younger families, when you're in the thick of it and you're just like putting out the fires, you got the diapers, the tantrums, the snacks, the naps, it's hard to zoom out. But I encourage anyone listening, if you feel like you're just in the thick of it, to zoom out and think, what do I want my kids' childhood to look like? What do I want the most important things in their life to be as they grow up and leave the home one day? And those are the things you want to focus on.
Absolutely. I think even writing it down, I mean, you could even make a picture of it with your kids, take each child individually and where do we want them to be 10, 15, 20, 50 years from now.
That's right.
And then let's back up and figure out how we're going to get there. What road are we going to take to get there?
So good.
Yeah. And it all focuses on Jesus. It all comes back to the Word of God, which is the most important thing, trusting Him to guide us and lead us as we navigate through this life. So
that's right.
It's so exciting. Well, we've got so much more to talk about, but we're out of time. So we're going to come back and talk more with Monica. Monica, tell people where they can find your book and all things. And you have a podcast too.
I do.
Where can they find all things Monica Swanson?
Yes. Easiest place to find me is my home base website, monicaswanson.com. I have the Monica Swanson podcast. It used to be the Boy Mom podcast, but now we expanded to talk about other things as well. And yes, you'll find all my books and all my things at monicaswanson.com.
Awesome. We will put those links in the show notes. Stay tuned to hear what's coming up next on the podcast. And you guys, thank you so much for listening. We were talking about the movie, Monica and I, last time we recorded together. The movie was not yet out. We were still in production. And so she's like, I haven't seen it yet. And I said, oh, you've got to see the movie now. So if you guys haven't seen it, go to schoolhouserocked.com. It's right on the front page. You can stream it for free and share it with your friends. Have a watch party. It's not too late to do that. Invite some friends over. It's summertime now and people are still sometimes considering homeschooling. If you're considering homeschooling, get Monica's book, Becoming Homeschoolers, because it speaks to any kind of homeschooler, but it's a great book for those who are just considering whether or not it's a good fit for their family. So get her book, watch the movie, Schoolhouse Rocked, The Homeschool Revolution, and I promise you will be blessed by both. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you back here next time. Bye.
Laughing in the face of imposter syndrome and coming to you from the epicenter of manly overconfidence, I'm your host, Yvette Hampton, and you are listening to The Thinking Dad.
Even if we're able to push the evildoers and the totalitarians back for another generation, maybe if we work really hard, maybe even 2 generations, if they've got the young people, it's over.
I often think about Daniel's parents, who you don't hear anything about. But they must have laid down the foundation for Daniel to be able to go into Babylon and not fall.
We're in that very beginning part of the cycle for tough times. We've been fat and happy. We've been enjoying we're lazy because we enjoy so much freedom. We got all these blessings, and why would you go do the hard work? And so for a long time now, decades, we haven't had to do the hard work. We've been living on the fumes of previous generations paying the price. And we got to raise the bar and say, I'm willing to give more of my life, that's my time, more of my money, of course, that's our fortune, and more of my sacred honor, which is my reputation. I'm willing to put it all on the line. Every single one of us has to be willing to do that.
Join us for the first season of The Thinking Dad at thinkingdad.net.
When I asked my son Luke what he most was happy to avoid, the first thing he said was, I'm so glad that I've never felt stuck. And I was like, tell me what you mean. And he's like, well, I just look at these kids and they all have to go to whatever school they're zoned for. They sit in a class that they're assigned. They have no choice in it. Right. And they have to study the things that everyone else is studying all day. He's like, I can't even imagine feeling stuck.